I lived in Ambo for 4 years. When I arrived, there were 22 children in the school at that stage. I suppose you could say we had serviced the needs, the immediate needs of deaf children in Ambo town, but we had so many pieces of paper from the social affairs groups in the rural districts. They had heard about the school and they were sending us in these lists of deaf children that they knew that were in their area. Myself and Abiot, the principal, decided at the end of rainy season that we would go out and visit these rural districts and see for ourselves what the reality was and meet families and meet these children. So we headed off, and difficult terrain at the end of rainy season. The roads are just mud baths, and oftentimes we'd kind of get stuck and you'd have to dig the bus out of the mud hole. It was a wonderfully exciting journey to some of these towns, and those buses would be carrying people heading to markets with produce and so on. Anyway, we got to visit 5 rural districts: Sedure, Gudur, Gedo, Adasalem, Welham, Comey. You can see them there. We met, so many families and children. The sad part was the older deaf and people with maybe additional disabilities who turned up, and we realized that quite possibly their opportunity for education had passed, but the parents were desperate for somebody to do something, even, I think, just acknowledge their child, but hopeful that maybe there was something else that we could do for them. We arrived in Inchinay, and this was the first place we visited, and I found myself quite overwhelmed by the number of people that kind of turned up. And I was thinking, oh my God, I thought I'd arrived in the middle of nowhere and who was going to be there. But anyway, all these people turned up, young people and children who were deaf. And I was really doing a needs assessment. I was asking, if we had a boarding facility in Ambo, would you send your child? There was nobody didn't agree to that. Yes, of course they would. We also asked, have they been to school? No. Can they sign? No. And then one man kind of said, okay, this is great. What you're going to do in the future is wonderful, but what about today? What about our children today? And that kind of stuck me to the spot. So just in a moment of madness or inspiration, I'm not sure, I just leant over to Abiot and I signed to him. If the families could find a place for their child to live, if they had relations in Ambo who would accommodate their child, and we could find a sponsor for them, would they be willing to send their child to the school? So we thought maybe 4 or 5 people would go that road. So when we left with a list of, I think it was 16 children and families who were interested. And this was our first visit to a rural district. And that was the same in every place we went to. We came away with about 100 names of people who were interested in sending their child to the school. So what we did was we organized an opportunity for all of these families to come to Ambo. We arranged for them to get a bus to bring their children. We gave them a stipend to pay for that. The Department of Social Affairs gathered them all together and brought them into the school. And when they arrived in the school, just one of the sentences that somebody said, we did not believe our ears when you spoke to us about the opportunity for our child, but now we believe our eyes, because they saw firsthand the difference the school was making to the children who were actually present. It literally blew their minds open. I think all of the stigma that they had experienced, people telling them your child is not capable of learning, your child has a mental disability, don't send them to school, keep them at home. All of that was suddenly, blown open. And the sense of expectation and hope among these parents was huge. So what I want to do is I want to take you on a little journey now. This happened the week before I left Ambo back in December 2020, I think it was. It was an extraordinary kind of coincidence that this woman arrived with a child asking for a place in the school. I had seen over the 4 years the difference the school was making on a daily basis to the children. I could see how they were just blossoming in the environment. This was a wonderful opportunity to accompany one family out into the rural district to their home and to see the reality of where they were coming from. So this is Workay. I thought she was the mother of the child, but actually she's her stepsister. Workay arrived at the school with Elsa and was begging for a place for her sister. Of course, we have what we call an open arms policy in school. if you're deaf, you're welcome. You don't have to beg and you don't have to worry. Your child is going to get a place. This is Work explaining to Elsa. You'll see it yourself, to subtitles. Because Elsa has a deaf brother and a deaf sister, they've developed what we call informal sign language or family sign language. So she has a lovely way of communicating to Elsa that she's going to be coming to this school. They're going to go home, they're going to sleep, and then they're going to come here. And just the smile then on Elsa's face. So I'll play that now. Work invited me to join them on their journey back to the rural district the following day to give the news to their siblings and to the family that the children were going to be welcomed at the deaf school. So at the break of dawn, 6 a.m. in the morning, up we get, and we're trying to get the first Isuzu truck, not a bus, Wenshi, Lake Wenshi. It's only 35 kilometers for Ambo, but you'll see that that means nothing because the road was horrendous. The dust, the dirt, but beautiful location, one of the most lovely places I visited in Ambo, or in Ethiopia. And this is where they were heading. When we got to the end of the road, Worke is kind of pointing way out into the distance. 8 kilometers away is where their village is. I was actually quite excited then about this journey because just looking at that view, I thought, this is a journey into, the unknown, despite the fact that it was very hot. Off we headed. We walked down through these ravines. In the time we were traveling in December, of course, it was dry season, so it was incredibly dusty. I mean, really, you can imagine if there was a wind, you'd be covered in dust. But in rainy season, this is impassable. So this is an area where no truck, no car, no vehicle has probably ever traveled out. If you want to come into the town in such a season, you'd probably need a horse or a donkey. Going out, we met some of the neighbours again, just a lovely experience of meeting people from the rural districts heading into the market, selling their grains and buying and selling. We were passing through, as I say, this rural district, mostly farming. And 82% of the people in Ethiopia are subsistence farmers. They literally live hand to mouth from what they get in a year, no savings. And if there's a bad season, obviously it's going to be a problem. But it reflects the reality for most of our children that they're coming from this sort of an environment, and their parents wouldn't be able to afford to send them to the school. So that's why we provide funding for accommodation. Arriving at the home only 35 kilometers away, but a 3.5-hour journey. I felt like I traveled 1,000,000 miles, to be honest with you. This was rural Ethiopia, 35 kilometers from Ambo. And whilst there were 3 children in this family, and they had a great sense of camaraderie among themselves, I could see from that journey how most of the children at our school were living kind of lonely, isolated lives. And if you're excluded then also maybe from your local community, that can be very difficult. This is Abiti, the little deaf boy, Elsa's brother. And Abiti is not even a name, it means baby. But if you're the youngest in the family, sometimes you continue to have that name. When he saw me coming, he ran and he hid for about 10 minutes. And then he became curious and he came out to see me. I gave him my phone eventually, and he even made a video, which I thought was incredible. If I was to give you one reason why you should go to Ethiopia and visit, I would say go for the coffee and the coffee ceremony. And again, riding out into this rural district and being invited into the home to sit down and have coffee prepared. It's roasted, it's ground, it's boiled, and it's poured out, and it's spectacular. And there's a lovely ceremony around it. It's just one of those hospitality things that you get. Again, on this day, having walked and made that journey, it was very, very welcome. This is a moment, what I call it, of joy and gratitude. And this is the moment where Abiot is telling the father, or has just told the father, Euphrasia, that his children are going to be welcomed into the school. And this is Elsa in the background there. So So the whole family are thrilled about this. This was a family with 3 deaf children, so they developed their own way of communicating, as I say, informal sign language. So this is Euphaesa telling Abiti that he's going to go to Ambo, and he has just a lovely way of communicating, writing, and you're going to wrap up your bag and you're going to go, and that he loves him. So, and I think Abiti understands, and he seems somewhat happy about this. So he gets himself dusted off. The dust is incredible in the area. He's heading off, and he has my bag. He's determined he's going to carry that. He actually is bringing nothing else. I didn't think they were going to come to Ambo that day. I thought we were going to visit them and we'd go back. But no, they weren't going to miss this opportunity. They were leaving today in case we changed our mind. So Abiti literally walked out with the clothes he had on, and that was it. And of course, before we went, we had to have a family group photograph. I felt sorry for the little girl in the front here, because she would be their cousin, and I suppose they were a little unit, and maybe her friends are heading off. But again, I hope she would understand at some stage why that was the case. So we headed off out the gate. The whole family would walk us to the edge of their village and wave goodbye and send us on our way to Ambo. And I can hear in this video, you won't hear it, but as they greet the neighbors, one of the sisters is saying, "The American has come and he's bringing the children to school." So being white and in Ethiopia and inviting children to school, I was an honorary American for that day. So when we got to the road again and the Isuzu truck turned up, the cost of traveling back to Ambo trebled when they saw myself for Renji. But what about my child? So the little boy in the green, when we got there and the woman heard that we were going to Ambo and the 3 deaf children, she said, "But my child is deaf." So she was begging us nearly if we'd take him on that day. And I said, "Look, we can't, but we will come back." And we have reached out. We've tried to kind of find where that child is. I'm not sure that we've managed that, but we know he's there, and at some stage, hopefully, he can come. I went first class in the front, having paid a premium, but I ended up with 2 people sitting on my knees, so not exactly a comfortable journey. But everybody else was up in the back of this Isuzu truck with the dust and the dirt flying up all around them. We made it back. Anyway, this is Abiti the next day, heading into the school, looking a little apprehensive, but also I think happy and curious again about where he is. When he gets into the school, he's probably never seen so many deaf children. He knows his sisters. And this is Chaltu. She's our mammy. She came to the school late, but she's learned so well. She's phenomenal. She organizes everything, telling people it's time now, come on, go to class. Nobody disobeys. But Abiti isn't having any of it. He's off looking a little bit nervous about this woman trying to force him into school. Anyway, this is Abiti, his first glance inside a classroom. And as he does that, Bayesa greets him and I suppose teaches him his first formal signs. So you can see this is hello, and then it's thank God and peace be with you. And that's the formal greeting everybody would use each day. So he's getting his first sign language lesson from one of our students. So then it's his opportunity to get a copybook and a pencil and a pen and, feel like he's a proper student in the school, and even to practice, writing. And when a new student arrives, all the other kids are incredibly curious, and they all want to see and help and criticize and say, "Oh my God, he doesn't know. Look at the way he's writing." And then others of people are saying, "No, encourage him. This is great." And of course, Abiot then plenty of positive affirmation. Whatever little thing he does right, whatever mark he makes on the page to start with, everything is affirmed. And people would say that the school for the deaf is a very happy environment. People from government who come and visit always comment the smiles on the faces of the children and the lovely atmosphere that there is in the school. And again, any visitors we have from outside always comment on this. I'm not saying they don't have their rows, I'm not saying they don't have their little fights, but overall, there is just a wonderful positive atmosphere. So, and then the importance of a uniform. This is at said day, Abiti and Elsa, and they've got their uniform. It's very difficult to explain to children who don't have sign language and the ability to understand that we can't just magic a uniform. Taraku has to come, he has to measure them, he has to go away, he has to sew it, it'll take maybe 3 weeks. So every day I would go down, and any new student in the school will be at me, and they'll be talking about when clothes, when are we going to have them? You just keep kind of saying tomorrow, and then eventually tomorrow comes. But the uniform gives them a great sense of identity. They now belong in the school. This is, somebody like Abiti maybe takes it for granted, but somebody like Atsade realizes that she now has a place. I just want to run through these slides. This is, again, Abiti. These children have not belonged in their communities and have been sidelined and maybe isolated. And now they come into the School for the Deaf and they feel a sense of belonging. They have a sense of identity. Language, how vital is that for all of us? Again, coming into the school, the opportunity to be able to express themselves, to share a thought or an opinion or an emotion or a feeling, to be able to understand what somebody is communicating to you, to be able to call another deaf child a name and start a row. Isn't that fantastic? I love that. The idea that you can begin a row by kind of signing, but also the ability to be able to say you're sorry and, make friends again. So language, we take it for granted, but for these kids, it really does, it unlocks all of their potential when they get sign language. So identity, say when they arrive into the school, they see themselves reflected maybe for the first time in the other children that are there. One of our students would say when she came to the school, she thought she was the only deaf child in the world. And now suddenly she realizes there's many more. They form community, that sense of identity, a sense of pride in who they are as a deaf person, not stigmatized, not marginalized, not on the edge. So that's really important. Self-esteem, again, Lensa here, when she came, so shy, full of life and energy in the school, but as soon as she stepped outside, she went into a little kind of a cocoon, always conscious of people watching her. So you tried to sign with her as you're going downtown and she wouldn't, no, don't, let me walk along. That was when she arrived, but within a couple of years had ditched all of that. Was out, walked through that gate with a real sense of pride and self-esteem and, as I say, identity, not in any way kind of ashamed, didn't mind if people were looking at her, and had really blossomed. And there's a lovely video we have on our website about Lensa coming to school as well. And then friendship. Again, this little fella, Lasa, we met him in Gooder. 2 years later, he arrived at the school. It took him 2 years to be able to find a place to stay. Maybe he was old enough. But again, his father would have said that in the town, he didn't really have too many friends. So when he came to the school, I asked the little fella on the right-hand side in Gidderwork, who was living close to him, I said, you look after him. And Gidderwork is one of our brightest kids. He's incredible. And I said, will you look after him, bring him to school every day, teach him sign language, help them to and they've become great friends, and Asosa as well. So there is a real sense of these kids having a wonderful sense of connection with each other in the school. And then pride. Now I say pride, and I use that to reflect something that happens within the parents. In the beginning, they came to the school, they didn't believe what their ears were hearing. So they had a great sense of pride now in their child. All of the negative information that they've been fed in the past was gone. And these parents then become our greatest advocates, and the greatest advocates of deaf people in the rural districts. They go back and they work to dispel the myths. They say, no, they don't accept this anymore. And word of mouth, the parents return to the countryside. They come regular enough. Maybe they're bringing food to their children in their houses. Maybe they're coming in to get something in the town. But when they go back, word of mouth out into the rural districts, telling people, no, if you've got a deaf child, your child can learn. And the proof of it is in Nambo. So it's just wonderful to see the parents, as I say, have that sense now of pride in their child and what they're doing and how they're developing. So one final little story just to complete this. You'll see Abiti, when he arrived, as I said, he had only the clothes he left Wenche in. So we gave him some clothes that we had been constantly bringing out. And he got his Cool Camp. And for people in other countries, Cool Camp is our sports association, the Irish Sports Association, Gaelic. And they have these camps for kids. And these tops, when we bring these over, the kids go mad for them, the colors, they just love them. So Abidi was finding it difficult to settle in Ambo, and he was wondering what was going on, coming from a rural district into a town. It was, I would say, slightly overwhelming for him. So he ran away. He decided he had enough of this and he was going back home. So he ran off, and there was panic and pandemonium about the place. Where is he? What's happened? So we were able to contact the police, and we were able to say one of our deaf children is gone. And they were saying, well, how will we know what he looks like? And we said, well, guess what? He's wearing an orange top and a grey thing and lovely. So we knew exactly what he was wearing. And he was spotted within about 5 minutes downtown. And of course, he was terrified when the police kind of came to him. He didn't know what was going on. Anyway, the policeman threw him up on his shoulders and brought him back to the school and delivered him in. Anyway, he didn't run away again. But I just love the idea that the Cool Camp top was what identified him and stopped him maybe, getting into any difficulty in the town. So I hope that gives you just a sense. There's so many things I could talk about, so much stuff about the education. Maybe that just gives you a sense of the impact, a sponsorship or a donation makes to, one kid or a family, the transforming effect it has on their lives, and all of those things: identity, esteem, friendship, language. There's so much to kind of unpack in all of that. I just hope that kind of gives you a good sense of what you're achieving with EDP. As I say, giving hands a voice.